Now, the Mazda MX-30 has largely been panned for its relatively small battery and therefore relatively limited range, offering about 200 kilometers WLTP, or is it 199? Admittedly, yes, the Mazda MX-30 is not necessarily the most usable EV on the market, particularly for that money. However, over the last weekend, I've proven that you can take one of these from here to here, which means maybe we are not giving the MX-30 the attention that it deserves. Maybe it's being treated unfairly. My name is ABDULLAH, this is Malaysian Motoring, and this is our feature of the Mazda MX-30 in a long-distance drive. Now, some very quick stats on the Mazda MX-30. It is powered by a 30 kilowatt hour usable battery, which provides this car, as I mentioned earlier, 199 kilometers WLTP, although in our testing it's more like 180. In terms of performance, this is not the fastest EV by a long shot, but it's got more than enough performance and torque, most importantly, to be used in town. It is quite a nippy little thing. More importantly, this CX-30 Hi comes fully loaded with all the ADAS systems that you want, which include things like adaptive cruise control, lane keep assist, lane centering, blind spot monitoring, lane change prevention or emergency lane change prevention assist, as well as traffic jam assistant. That is most important. Now, in terms of charging, this car can DC charge at up to 40 kilowatts, which means 10 to 80% takes about half an hour to 45 minutes, whereas AC charging is limited at about 7 kilowatts, which means that this car can go from about 20% or 30% to full in about 3 and a bit hours. This is again based on real-world testing. Now, let's talk about this long-distance drive, because I had planned a weekend in Port Dickson, which, with a little bit of planning, I discovered was about 107 kilometers from where I began to where I ended. Now, what's important to bear in mind is that where I stayed had a 7 kilowatt hour AC charger, which meant that arriving there at 50%, I could plug the car in, and then by later that evening, by dinner time, the car was already full again. This is worth bearing in mind because most EVs, if not all EVs, require some degree of planning when it comes to taking on a journey. If you were to drive this primarily in town where you can charge the car at home, I can guarantee that you are not going to use a 180 kilometer range all the time. In fact, the MX-30 is very clearly positioned and billed as a city car, and as a city car, it is frankly fantastic. It is very refined, it is very comfortable. These alloy wheels that were selected for this car have a lot of sidewall to them, which means that they can absorb your primary impacts pretty well. And because this car is not very big, it is actually based on the CX-30 platform, although it is slightly shorter and slightly lower, it does mean that it is very, very usable in town. A lot of EV buyers, particularly urban EV buyers, tend to look at cars that they can primarily use in town, which means that this should tick their boxes because it does provide enough usable range for that purpose. But why we took this particular car on holiday is because we wanted to prove whether or not this car was usable over a slightly different distance and over a slightly different usage style. And based on that daily usage of about 5 kilometers per kilowatt hour, with the AC running, it was a very hot weekend, which means the AC was basically at full blast the entire time. We can attest to the fact the MX-30 is genuinely usable. Even for distances like that, you can get away with using something like this. And on top of that, because the MX-30 is ultimately a Mazda, it does mean that when you are driving at speed on motorways, for example, it still remains very, very refined. Wind and road noise remain very well suppressed, far north of the national speed limit, although honestly you don't really want to be doing that because this car has ADAS functions anyway. Switch on the adaptive cruise control, stick it in the middle lane, and just sit there and enjoy your journey. When you're doing that, you'll be able to enjoy this car's standard fit heads-up display as well as the Bose audio system, which admittedly is among the very best within the sub 200,000 ringgit category. And on top of that, the MX-30 of course benefits from the unique position of being very rare. In addition to this fantastic color, which I've seen a million times but I still haven't gotten over it yet, in addition to this color, it also strikes a very decent look on the motorway. People can see the fact that this car has 4 doors but only 2 door handles. They can see the fact that it's very, very well designed. It's very sharp. It's very handsome. And as far as I'm concerned, to me, this is among the very best city EVs that money can buy. And if you're willing to do just a little bit of planning, this could very well be the sort of car that you can use even for long distance drives. A word of warning, however, because this car charges at only 40 kilowatts DC, it does mean that if you want to take in a long distance drive, you have to look for chargers that are either at the correct speed for this car or charge per kilowatt hour. Because if you were to go to, say, a Shell recharge station, which offers up to 180 kilowatts at 4 ringgit a minute, you'll be wasting a lot of that capacity because a car doesn't charge any faster than that, although I suspect that most of you, being very familiar with EVs, would know that already. The other thing that I appreciate with this car when driving long distance are the headlights. So this car comes as standard with full LED headlights replete with adaptive high beam, which means that while driving to and from PD and around PD in the middle of the night, where a lot of those roads are unlit, the standard fit adaptive front lighting system ensured that I always had fantastic visibility no matter the situation, no matter the conditions, which I very much appreciated with this car. Now, the MX-30's primary rival is the Mini Electric, which also provides about 200 kilometers of range in a single charge. However, what the MX-30 matches with the Mini is in terms of style, because you can't tell me that this doesn't look good. Where the MX-30 beats the Mini, however, is in terms of practicality, because where the Mini only has a pair of front doors, the MX-30 has a pair of rear doors. And without the B-pillar, it does mean that even with this seat set in this position, it is actually quite easy to get in and out. In fact, over the weekend, we put 5 people in this to drive all the way to PD, and everyone was pretty comfortable. In fact, the air conditioning in the front was actually strong enough to reach all the way to the rear, so everyone was really, truly very comfortable. And on top of that, going on holiday with 5 people means there's 5 people's worth of luggage, which this car was quite happy to do. This space is very usable. There's very little load lid, just enough to sort of keep bags from falling out should you be taking things in and out. And of course, yes, there's a lot of clutter that comes with this car, but as an owner, you wouldn't be carrying this stuff around. What I appreciate is the fact the MX-30 comes as standard with a 3-pin plug, which is actually designed to look a little bit like a wall box, so you can actually have it mounted to a wall in order to charge your cars. You don't have to spend more money on a wall box if you don't want to. The one issue that I do have with the luggage capacity in this car is the fact there is no space underneath the boot floor. Not even big enough to hold the emergency tire repair kit or the first aid kit that comes as standard with this car. That is mostly to do with the fact that whatever space is in there has been taken up by the Bose subwoofer. Can't have everything, I guess. So would I recommend the MX-30? For a very specific use case, yes. If this is a second car, or the vehicle that you use primarily to go to and from work or to do daily chores and that sort of thing, especially if you live in a property where you can charge the vehicle every day, then yes, this is a very usable EV and certainly something that I would recommend. And from what I understand, Mazda is giving out some pretty good discounts on the MX-30, which means that its 200,000 ringgit asking price doesn't really apply. Now, we can't tell you how much those discounts are because they change day to day apparently, but a quick inquiry will show that you can get a significant price cut on one of these, which means you can travel in style for less. And did I mention the fact that charging at home is equivalent to about 15 bucks for a full charge? In any case, that has been our feature of the Mazda MX-30. We are hoping to bring you a lot more content about this car in the very near future, provided certain things go our way. But if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell icon, so you're notified every time we make a new upload. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. All the links are in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Take care and stay safe.